Hey, beautiful people, and welcome back to A Man, a Van, a Plan. Let's get you updated real quick on some things that I didn't catch on tape. As you can see, I have all my windows in. I've also cut out for my refrigerator vent, and I have my hot water tank installed. Additionally, I have a couple of my overhead cabinets built, as well as all of my base cabinets.
Okay, next let's get you caught up on this solar system. Now, I am not an electrician. Fortunately, I've got a good buddy who lives next door who is an electrician. I can do basic wiring, I can run wires through here, but as far as the actual installation and all the hookup of the wires, I left that to my buddy Nick, who came over and is probably going to be doing all of my solar panel electrical installs. Doing a little bit different system this time than I did with the last van. The last van was strictly a solar system. Whatever power it could generate from the solar panels through the sun, that was all that charged up the batteries. For this one, I upgraded the solar system a little bit. I went with a different company this time. The last company that I went with, I'm not going to say their name, but their name started with an R and ended with a Y. I liked their equipment well enough, however, their customer service was absolutely god-awful. They sent me a defective charge controller, and I spent literally 8.5 hours on the phone with them trying to get them to send me a working charge controller. I did eventually get one. They didn't charge me anymore for it, but I spent so much time sitting on hold with them that I vowed I would never give that company another dime of my money. So again, I'm not going to say the company name, but it starts with an R, ends with a Y. They're very well known in the van building solar power field. I went with a company this time called Go Power. One of the big reasons I went with Go Power was they had the system I was looking for, and I called up the company to ask them a question before I purchased the unit. The call went straight through. I asked the question. The lady who answered said, "I can't answer that. Let me get you over to the guy who can." It rang 2 more times to his desk or whatever. He picked right up, was able to answer the question I had, and that's how I think business should be. Not sitting on hold for 8.5 hours. Anyway, that's my editorial with them. So, with this particular system, I do have a solar panel up on the roof. It is a 190 watt solar panel. I thought that was a little low for what I wanted, but I'm going to give it a try and see how it does. The solar panel is wired and it comes down through the roof, like you see here, and then it goes through the framing of the van and hooks into the charge controller. From the charge controller, the power then goes to charge up the battery. This is just a small temporary battery I have in here for right now. Nick put this in just to make sure the system was working. This particular system has a 1500 watt inverter, and this is what I'm really excited about. This system has a shore power plug-in. This will bypass the inverter, so you can plug in if you're at a campground and you can run all of your electrical outlets off that. All of your 12 volt system will still be run off of the battery. But Nick is also going to install a trickle charger for me so that when we are plugged into shore power, what we can do is plug that trickle charger in and keep the batteries charged up that way. I think it's a pretty neat system. I'm really excited to see how it works. So today's project is going to be making upper cabinets for this area right here, for over the bed and coming out over the 2-person bench seat. These are going to be a pretty long set of cabinets. I think I'm going to do them in 2 or 3 sections and then meld them together at the end before I install them. So here's what I've got going on. I've got some pieces of plywood right here that are rough cut to about the size that I want the sides of my cabinets to be. Now, if you take a look over here, you can see we run into an issue. What I've done is I've taken a long piece of scrap plywood and I've cut it to about the length that I need it to be to make sure that these side pieces are going to be straight and level. So I need to take quite a bit off these here on this side to make sure that they fit into this slope. I've already done that with this one. I've just rough cut it. I don't know exactly where it's going to end up, but let's see. Okay, actually that's not too bad. I can see I need to take a little bit more off the top here, but I don't think I need to take any more off the back side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball a mark, and we want it wider at the top, coming down to a point right down there at the end. So that thicker line is the one I'm going to cut on the chop saw. Okay, we're over at the chop saw now, and I'm going to cut this line right here. Now, I don't know what this degree measurement is. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm just going to eyeball it, and if I've got to make several cuts to get it there, that's just fine. Okay, that looks pretty good. It doesn't need to be exact. You may have to go back and forth from the van to the chop saw a couple times to find your exact measurement. Let's see how we did. Yep, that's not too bad at all right there. I like it. The next thing I'm going to do is figure out exactly how much I need to build this rib of the van out. I've got a couple of pine 1x3 furring strips here. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2 of them together, but let's figure that out now.
The perils of working by yourself. This is where a second pair of hands would really come in handy.
Yeah, that's going to be just about right. 2 of them together. So that's what we're going to do. All right, I've got my 2 layers of furring strips up. They are not going anywhere. These are on there good and tight. They're not going anywhere. Last thing I need to do is just make a mark on my pattern here where exactly I want this to end. Now this is going to be over the bed, so I'm going to realize that I need to make sure that I have enough space so that the bed is comfortable. We don't want it too cramped in here. So what I like to do for these upper cabinets that are going to be over the bed and also over the 2-person bench seat is I'm going to make them so that they end just right here, right where this frame is. So I'm going to set up my pieces. I'm going to bring that up just a hair. And I'm going to make my mark. I'm going to make it on this side because it's easier. Okay, and again, it doesn't need to be exact because we can put some trim in there later if we need to. But that is roughly where I want to cut these off. All right, we're over here at the table saw. I'm going to cut my pattern down to size and then take it back into the van, just check it one more time, make sure it's how I want it, and then I'm going to use this to cut 3 more end pieces, and those will be the sides of our carcass. When you're working the table saw, please remember eye muffs, ear muffs, and a push stick. All right? Make sure you keep all your fingers. Okay, our pattern looks great. Looks like it's going to fit perfectly. Now I'm just going to use the pattern to set up for all of our different cuts. I have several different pieces here. These are pieces that are left over from other bits in the van. They're all different sizes, but they're all square. I'm just going to take these and cut them all to the same size. The last thing I'm going to do is take these pieces over to the chop saw. Again, I'm just going to eyeball the angle. It doesn't matter that much as long as it's close, and make my cuts. These cabinets are going to be affixed together with pocket screws and glue. That's it. Nothing fancy. No dado cuts, no rabbet cuts. We'll save those for another project. Pocket screws and glue is plenty strong enough for cabinets like this. Now, I like to minimize the amount of sanding that I have to do. So I like to take each piece and I like to lay out where I'm going to have my pocket screws. I like to hide them as much as possible. So we're going to start with this one that goes right over here by the door. Now I know that this side is going to be the face of it. This is what you're going to see every time you open the door. So I want to hide any pocket screws. So I'm not going to put any on this side. I'm going to paint these later, so I've just labeled this here, no screws. That way if I happen to pick this up and it's facing the wrong direction, no screws on that side. So for this guy, we're going to start with the bottom piece, and I'm going to mark where I'm going to put 5 screws in the bottom. This is going to be the inside of this particular carcass. It's going to fit right up here. You'll see this side when you open up the cabinet, but you won't see this side because there will be another carcass abutted to it. So I'm marking there that that's where I want these. Same with this. I'm going to label this one number 3. It's my first, second, third one. You won't see this side because there'll be the other side of that carcass abutted to it. So right there is where I want these pocket screws. That's number 3. I'm going to label this one no screws. My final one, number 4, is going to go all the way down at the end, down here. This one I've got to decide whether I would rather have the pocket screws showing from the inside or if I want them showing from the outside when I open up the back doors. And I think that they're going to be more hidden if they're on the inside. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to label this one number 4. And I also labeled it inside, so I know that's the inside of that one.
All right, let's go drill some pocket holes. While you're watching me drill out pocket holes, let's talk about cutting the plywood bottoms of these cabinet carcasses. For some reason, I didn't get any footage of this, but basically what you want to do is you want to measure the length of the bottoms of your cabinet carcasses, and that is the width that you will cut the bottoms to. After you cut that width, you want to cut them down to length. It'll make more sense a little bit later on when you see me cut out for the sides and the tops.
There we go. First set done. All right. What we're going to do now is temporarily attach these with a couple of pocket screws. So I want to make sure that I have these lined up correctly. So I know this is the back, and I'm thinking about where piece number 3 is, and that's going to be on the inside. So that needs to go down here. So I've got piece number 4. I know this is the back side. I know this is the side we're going to see. This side will be hidden on the inside of the cabinet. So I'm just going to temp these screws in. I think I'm going to put, this is a long cabinet, I'm going to put 3 in. This doesn't need to be lined up exactly, but we want it close. We don't want it sloppy, but it doesn't need to be 100% on. And the reason why is I'm going to take these apart later. Each side and then one in the center. And then down here, this time we want the pocket holes on the outside where they're going to be hidden. Again, I labeled this side no screws. I know that's going to be on the inside, and I want to make sure that I've got the back sides matching. All right, that's our first one. Here's our shorter carcass. Okay, number one's going to be down here because this is what you're going to see when you first open up the sliding door. Again, pocket screws are going to be hidden on the inside. And this is off a little bit. It looks a little sloppy. That's okay for right now. It doesn't need to be perfect right now. We'll make it perfect later. All right, there's the start of our second carcass. All right, next we're going to cut our piece for the top of the carcass. We need to get our measurement along here, which is 8 1/4. We're going to call it 8 3/8. 8 3/8 inches. We're going to set that up on the table saw. We'll cut one long piece, and then we'll cut that piece to the size we need it for each individual carcass. Okay, while the bottom of the carcass was on the outside of the two side pieces, I want this top of the carcass to be on the inside. So I'm using 1/2 inch plywood. So that means I had to take my bottom measurement and bring it in 1/2 inch on each side, or a total of 1 inch. So my long one was 68 1/2 inches. I'm going to measure this one out to 67 1/2 inches. I'm going to try to cut this on my chop saw. I think my blade will make it. I'm not 100% sure. I was able to cut these to length on my chop saw. I had just enough blade. So we're back to doing pocket screws. Now, again, I want to hide as many pocket screws as I can because I don't want to have to go back later and futz with them and try and sand them out and hide them. So this is going to be the top, and we're actually going to cut our pocket screws in the top of the carcass. So we'll throw this one in the jig. And there we go. Now this one is going to be too long to fit in our jig. So I'm going to show you the right way to cut pocket screws with this smaller jig, and then I'm going to show you the fast way to cut pocket screws with this smaller jig. Here is the proper way to cut pocket holes with this little pocket hole jig. You set that right where you want your pocket holes. You take a clamp, you clamp it down just like so. That's not going to move. Unscrew your clamp. Perfect pocket holes. Now I'm going to show you the fast way to cut pocket holes. Perfect pocket holes. I don't recommend the second way. It takes a fair amount of forearm strength. But you can see right there, it does work. It's time to attach the tops of these carcasses. Once again, I think I'm just going to do 2 screws in each side for this one. And for my purposes today, this doesn't need to be perfect. Here's a little tip for you. If you're installing one of these really, really long upper cabinets yourself, take a toolbox. In this case, it's a box from my air nailer that's about that height, and then I'm going to set it right there. That's going to hold this side up for me while I screw in the other side. I've cut the backs of the cabinet carcasses the same way, the same lengths as the top, just different widths. The thing you want to remember with this is you want it to fit on the inside of the carcass, and I'll show you what I mean by that once I start to attach these with pocket screws. But I'm going to go ahead and knock those out now, and I will catch up with you when it's time to attach these on the inside. Okay, it's time to attach these, and once again, you want to make sure that these are as hidden as possible. This is the back of the cabinets, so I'm going to attach these pocket screws back here. You won't even see them once these are hung up on the wall. And what I mean by you want to make sure that this fits inside is you're taking the inside measurement, which again is the same as the top measurement, 19 inches.
In this case.
But then you're also measuring not from here, but from here, the top of the bottom portion of your cabinet carcass. And it fits right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these, and then we'll get to this final piece. So let's talk for a minute about the number of pocket screws I'm putting in here. I can already see the comments blowing up right now. David, you're putting way too many screws in there. David, that's way overbuilt. And you know what? Maybe it is. Especially once I get glue in here, maybe this is overkill on the number of pocket screws. But these are more than kitchen cabinets. Kitchen cabinets in your house are static. These have to survive going down the road, over bumps. These are going to get a lot of wear and tear. A box of 500 pocket screws runs me, I don't know, 20 bucks, 25 bucks. Let's say they're $25 for 500 of them. I would rather use a few more screws and make sure that these are going to stand up to years and years of, road rattling and going over bumps and potholes. It takes me a little more time, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have them a little stronger, a little overbuilt, and I think that it's going to save people down the road from having to repair my work. I don't want to have my work repaired. I want it done right. I want it done strong. So if you buy one of my vans, you know that these cabinets are strong, they're sturdy, they're not going anywhere. Okay, one thing I noticed I forgot to do with these upper cabinets was I didn't put any pocket screws in back here. Again, these are going to come apart and get glued up, so I'm going to have to remember to put pocket screws in there when I go to glue them up for the final. So I'm just going to mark this. Leave myself a note for later so I remember to do that. I'm going to do the same thing on the long one.
Next, I'm going to cut the final pieces for the backs of the cabinet carcasses. I've set my table saw blade to a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to take the inside measurement of the last area that needs to be filled, and I'm going to add, probably 3/4 of an inch to that, so that when I put these in from the inside, it covers the gap quite nicely. So I'm cutting a 45-degree angle on each side, and then I'll cut my pocket holes.
Okay, the last thing that I need to do today is hang these up. Again, just temporarily, just make sure everything mostly fits. We'll do the final fit after I take them apart, glue them up, and put it back together perfectly. It's just me out here. I don't have any help. So what I've done is I've pre-drilled 4 screws into the back of this. Okay, and there's that. Now they're not hanging up there quite straight. That's okay. Everything's just temped in right now. We will get them straight in the final fitting. Now I just need to hang up that end one.
Okay, and that's the end of today's project. This took me about 3.5 hours to do. A lot of that time was spent kind of setting shots up, so that slowed me down quite a bit. But these are up. These are just temped in. Once again, they will have to come down, get glued, get fastened up. Everything will get just a real light, quick sanding and then some painting, and then they'll go back up. At that point, I'm going to make sure that they're up there square. I'm going to make sure that they're up there level. That's not for today, though. That's for another day. So thanks a lot for coming along. Thanks a lot for watching me build. I hope you're out there adventuring, and we'll see you next time.